So now that we have given a start to foreign exchange risk management, and as we have understood, initially we shall be going through certain basics of the foreign exchange markets. So we start with the first basic concept, and that is the exchange rate. See, exchange rate is the rate at which one currency will get converted into another currency. We say forex markets are market for foreign currency. It means foreign currency will be purchased and sold. What is the rate at which foreign currency will be purchased and sold? That is what we understand as an exchange rate. So exchange rate will be understood as a rate at which one currency can be converted into another currency. For example, let us say from an Indian context, we want to know what are the exchange rates. So let us say $1 right now, let's say, is trading at 73.75, right? We can consider this as an exchange rate. This is the rate at which the dollar can be converted into Indian rupees. Similarly, let us say 1 pound is equal to, let's say, around 94 rupees, let's say, or let us say 1 euro is around, let us say, 86.15, right? Or let's say 1 yen is equal to rupee 0.70. All these examples that I have put on the screen, these are examples of exchange rate. As I said earlier also, these are the rates at which we will be in a position to buy or sell foreign currency. For example, if I want to buy dollar, then I can see, okay, it is around 73.75. Or if I want to sell the dollar, then we can say that on an average, it is 73.75. So these are the rates at which we are in a position to convert our Indian rupee into the foreign currency, right? If you see this from an Indian viewpoint, if you see this from an Indian viewpoint, then all these are foreign currency. FC will stand for foreign currency. And this rupee obviously is the local currency. So I am expressing, right? I am expressing in this way that 1 unit of foreign currency is equal to how many units of local currency. This is what is popularly known as a direct quote. Now we are discussing the main concept, and be very careful here. I am discussing the concept of direct quote and indirect quote, and let me tell you, every question of forex, and if not every question, majority of the questions of forex will start with this basic question: have they given us a direct quotation or have they given us an indirect quotation? There are scores and scores of students who basically fail to interpret this, that whether a direct quote is given or an indirect quote is given. And this judgment in exams is extremely important. Even in the exams also, whenever a quotation will be given, you will have to interpret whether it's a direct quotation or whether it is an indirect quotation. And that's the reason it's very crucial that you are clear with this concept right from the very beginning. Okay, so exchange rate, we are discussing about the exchange rates. Exchange rate or exchange quotations will be of two types. Please understand this. Exchange rate or exchange quotation or an exchange quote, let's say, they will be of two types. One will be referred as a direct quote. Let me use a short form, DQ. And another is indirect quote, right? Indirect quote, which we will understand as IDQ. Okay. Now, this format is understood as a format of a direct quotation. What is a direct quotation? A direct quotation is that quotation which will express number of units of local currency per 1 unit of foreign currency. Everything which is there on your screen, right? All these quotations which are there on your screen will be referred as direct quotation, right? Because in India, what is the local currency? In India, the local currency is rupee. So if you look at these quotations are basically representing number of units of local currency. As you can see, number of units of Indian rupee per 1 unit of dollar, per 1 unit of pound, euro, yen. So we are expressing number of units of local currency, which is Indian rupee, per 1 unit of foreign currency. And that's the reason we will refer them as a direct quote. As against this, we also have what is known as an indirect quote. Okay, an indirect quote. Now, instead of this, let's say I ask, instead of this, let's say I put the rates in this way. 1 rupee is equal to how many dollar? 1 rupee is equal to how many pound? 1 rupee is equal to how many euro? 1 rupee is equal to how many yen? All these will become indirect quotations. Okay, let me do it. I'm getting the dollar as 0.01366. Let's go up to 4 digits after the decimal. 1 divided by 94.06, let's say. So I'm getting 0.0106. Similarly, 1 divided by 86.15. I'm getting 0.0116. Similarly, 1 divided by zero point 0.7. Let's say I'm getting 1.4286. So these are the quotations that I'm getting. These quotations that I have put now will be referred as indirect quotation. What happens in an indirect quotation? Indirect quotation, we will say 1 unit of local currency is equal to how many units of foreign currency. If this is the way you are expressing the quotation, we will consider this quotation as, right? I will consider this quotation as an indirect quote. So indirect quotation is a quotation which will be expressing number of units of foreign currency per 1 unit of local currency. In India, Reserve Bank of India has banned indirect quotes. So no Indian bank will give you an indirect quotes. That is the reason in India, okay, in India, we are habituated with these kinds of quotations only. You have never seen these kinds of quotation where we say 1 rupee is equal to dollar 0.0136. We don't come across that because Indian banks are not allowed to provide the indirect quotes. RBI has made it very clear that see in India we will be using only direct quotation for a very simple reason that Indian rupee is weak against majority of the international currencies. If you see here, dollar, pound, euro, everywhere the Indian rupee is weak. Yes, yen is an exception where Indian rupee is turning out to be a bit stronger, but then that's another story. As far as the major currencies of the world are considered, I mean international currencies. By international currency, I mean those currencies in which majority of the international trade is taking place. In India, if you are exporting, for example, let's say you are a manufacturer and you are exporting, you will not bill your international client in Indian rupees. You are going to bill the international client in either dollar or maybe pound or maybe euro. These are the currencies which are extremely popular. Actually, it's possible that around 80 to 90% of the trade that happens in India, it is happening through dollars only. Although there are clients who may go for GBP, there may be clients who may go for euro, but most of the international trade happens in the US dollar, right? So against these international currencies, our currency is weak. So instead of expressing our currency in decimals, see if indirect quote is there, what will happen? For example, if I ask you what is the rate between the Indian rupee and the dollar, let's say I have put it on the board, I have put it on the screen, but tell me, if I ask you that what is the exchange rate, maybe you don't have much idea, you would be like, okay, it is a little bit around 70 rupees. It might be a little bit around 72 rupees. This is what you may tell me. No one will say that, okay, Indian rupee dollar, yeah, it must be zero point 0.0 something. No, that doesn't happen. These quotations are not allowed in India. And that is the reason we are habituated seeing what is understood as a direct quotation. So the quotations that we get from the Indian banks will be direct quotations, but international it is not so. Internationally, both the quotations are popular, direct quotations as well as the indirect quotations. So what learning point over here is that how exactly are we going to interpret whether it is a direct quotation, whether it is an indirect quotation. And be very careful. You have to simply remember this basic format. Tell me, what is a direct quotation? When can you say a quotation is a direct quotation? If it is an exchange rate which is expressing number of units of local currency per 1 unit of foreign currency. If that is so, it is a direct quotation. Tell me, how will you decide that it's an indirect quotation? Indirect quotation. Indirect quotation will express number of units of foreign currency per 1 unit of local currency. Okay, and there is a mathematical relationship between the two. Remember this mathematical relationship. Direct quotes and indirect quotes are reciprocals of each other. Okay, direct quote is nothing but 1 upon indirect quote, or I can say indirect quote is nothing but 1 upon the direct quotation. When I converted, right, these quotations, if you'll see 73.75, when I converted into indirect quote, I simply did 1 divided by 73.75. So this is the mathematical relationship between a direct quote and an indirect quote. In your exams, you will have to read the question and interpret whether they have given us a direct quotation or an indirect quotation. Let us say you come to the conclusion. Let's say you come to the conclusion that they have given you an indirect quote. Then we will convert this indirect quote to a direct quote. We shall be using direct quotations for the purpose of solving our questions. Of course, with lots and lots of practice, you will gradually learn also using indirect quotes and solve the question. Agreed. But when we will be solving the questions, we will convert indirect quotes to direct quotations, and accordingly we'll solve the question, right? Once we have done that, you will be then sitting down for the purpose of revision, maybe the second revision, third revision. Once you have tremendous grip on the topic, and once you are really confident, then you may start solving questions even using indirect quotes. Fine. But when I will teach, we shall be making use of the direct quotations. Now, one extremely important thing. I say $1 is equal to rupees 73.75. I ask you the question, is it a direct quotation or an indirect quotation? Okay, I'm writing on the screen $1 equals to rupees 73.75. The question that I'm asking you is this a direct quotation or is it an indirect quotation? Now, let me tell you one thing. No quotation is universally direct quotation. No quotation is universally indirect quotation. It is the viewpoint which will decide whether it is a direct quotation or is it an indirect quotation. See, viewpoint is very important. Viewpoint will decide whether it is direct or indirect. Tell me, what is a direct quotation format? We say it is 1 unit of foreign currency equals to number of units of local currency. Okay. Tell me, what is an indirect quotation format? Indirect quotation format, 1 unit of local currency is equal to number of units of foreign currency, right? It is this thing which is there. Now, let me make it very clear. It is the viewpoint which will decide whether it is direct or indirect. What do I mean by viewpoint? Just see. What I'm saying is a viewpoint. I'm introducing something known as a viewpoint over here. Okay. Let us say we take an Indian viewpoint. I take an Indian viewpoint over here. Now, if I take an Indian viewpoint, I'm asking myself, what is the local currency? Local currency over here is rupee. And what is the foreign currency? The foreign currency over here is dollar. So I am saying this is 1 unit of foreign equals to how many units of local? And hence I will say it is a direct quotation. So the quote which is there on the screen is a direct quotation provided it is an Indian viewpoint. But let us say the viewpoint. Okay, here I'm introducing the viewpoint. Let us say it is a US viewpoint. Let us say there is some citizen in US who is looking at this quotation. A person born and brought up in US, let us say. That fellow is looking at this quotation. $1 equals to rupees 73.75. Let's say you are a US citizen. If you are a US citizen, tell me. If you are a US citizen, tell me which is your local currency. If you are a US citizen, which is your local currency? Your local currency will be dollar, isn't it? And what will be the foreign currency? Rupee will be the foreign currency for you, right? So if you are a US citizen, then this quotation which is there on the screen is not a direct quotation for you. It is an indirect quotation. I hope you agree with me, right? What I am just trying to suggest to you is that it is the viewpoint which will decide whether it is a direct quotation or it is an indirect quotation. No quotation is universally direct. No quotation is universally indirect. Viewpoint decides whether it's a direct quotation. Viewpoint decides whether it is an indirect quotation. So whenever you are reading any question of Forex, after you have read the entire question, ask yourself, from whose viewpoint am I supposed to answer the question? Read the entire question. Let us say in the question, this is the exchange rate which is given to us. I read the entire question, this is the exchange rate given. After I have read the entire question, I will now ask myself, am I supposed to solve this question from an Indian company viewpoint, or am I supposed to solve this question from the viewpoint of a US company? If the question is to be solved from the viewpoint of Indian company, then they have given me a direct quotation. And if the question is to be solved from the viewpoint of the US company, then it will turn out to be an indirect quotation. So no quotation is direct, no quotation is indirect. It is the viewpoint which will decide whether it is a direct quotation. It is the viewpoint that will decide whether it is an indirect quotation, right? If it is an indirect quotation, convert it to a direct quotation. Direct quotation, indirect quotations, they are reciprocals of each other. So I will simply say 1 upon whatever exchange rate they have given, and I will convert it into a direct